Felicia, let's have a conversation about
Yes,
what therapy is and what therapy is not.
Ooh,
Okay, so
we doing this.
yes, we are doing this. We are going there.
Okay.
All right, so this is a freestyle. We're just gonna ask some random questions, and I'm gonna start off with the first question, which is, and I kind of want you to go deeper. This is a question that's already been asked, but I really want you to go deeper, which is the difference between friends, family, and therapists. Because it seems like people really cross that boundary of what to expect from a therapist because of what they expect from a family or friend. Absolutely. So could you elaborate on that?
Sure. So I'm noticing that more too, like you said, the crossing boundaries, just like in different groups and communities that I'm in. Some of the things that I may hear providers say or ask or advocate for another client, I'm like, y'all teeter-tottering on some professionalism and ethical stuff, so we have to be careful. But when we're talking about the population of people looking to come into therapy, the similarity is hopefully all of them are there to support you, right? They're there to support you. But the difference, and a lot of people, they don't come to therapy for whatever many reasons are. It could be taboo, it can be myth. But the reason why I would always promote somebody to go to therapy is because, let's just talk about my friends. They've grown to love me. They've grown to learn who I am. And although I can elicit your advice, you are still biased. It is very hard for people who care deeply about you or that are too close to the situation not to be biased.
Absolutely.
You know, and if people don't know what bias means, have an opinion. Doesn't mean that what they tell you wouldn't benefit you in some way. But also know that when people are giving you this advice, it is hard for them to keep themselves out of it. The other part of it is you're their friend, but they also have a friend. So people do gossip, they do pillow talk. It may even be, I have this friend that's going through this, and as my friend, what would you suggest? You know, so you always run the risk of that. And they may have great friends that never say anything, but just know if you're telling somebody, somebody is telling somebody else. Same thing with family. Again, they love you, they may not, but they've grown to learn about you. Because as we get older, we evolve, we have our own lives. We're no longer the little people that they had in their life.
Right.
They're very opinionated. And they're always going to err on your side, generally. Right or wrong, right? But it can blind them from giving you great advice. You know, it was always a blessing in many communities to have the older, wiser person to give you that. It doesn't exist as much as it used to, or at least it doesn't seem like that.
Right.
So you have to be careful. And the same thing with friends. You don't want your business going around family. And one thing that I've noticed about family, I'm not saying friends don't do it, but a lot of the older generation sometimes, and I don't care, you black, white, purple, orange, or polka dotted or striped. Well, girl, I went through that, so I got over it, but that was you. Two people can live in the same household and grow up as siblings in the same exact household, have the same experiences, however, experience them differently.
Absolutely.
You can have a parent who is, let's just say, drugs. You wonder, like, well, I don't know what's wrong with my brother or my sister. They on drugs, but I turned out to be great because you were both impacted differently. And that's the thing about family is they can't always separate that. Now, when it comes to a therapist, this is somebody that don't know you. They don't have a dog in the fight. And they are trained to remain unbiased. It doesn't mean that we don't have biases.
Right.
But we are trained to keep our opinions to ourselves. All I'm seeing is a person in front of me, what you're bringing to me, and me to support you in finding techniques, ways to make this therapeutic journey a healthier one for you and as less painful as possible, if that makes sense, because I don't know why you're coming to me. Most people do come for trauma, but therapy is for everyday stress. You might have stress on your job, you know. So that's the benefit of having a therapist, and we're gatekeepers. What that means is I can't go home and pillow talk with my husband. I can't go tell my friend. I can't even go tell my colleague. If we're not part of your treatment team, I have to hold that That's why it's very important for therapists to also get into therapy or make sure they engage with self-care. No, you're not going telling what that client said, but you have a way to kind of diffuse the burdens in which you carry every day. So that's the huge differences. A lot of people don't know how to do that. It's kind of like that thing of, when employees go to work, they say, whatever you're going on at home, leave it outside the door. Same thing for therapists. When you leave work, leave it there. And a lot of people can't do that because we have this thing called countertransference. And there's other terms in the therapy world that means that you had a client and they impact you felt that, and it impacts your mood, the way you think. You can actually be impacted by hearing trauma too. So you have to be strong enough and skilled enough to know that when a person comes and tells me, that's between me and that person, and I'll leave it there. I don't carry that with me and try to deal with that or try to figure out anything about that. We deal with that then, and when we're done, it stays there until we pick it back up. So
amazing answer. Yeah, that was an amazing answer.
I know it's a little long-winded, but
no, that's fine. So for a therapist, and I'm pretty sure there is, but some people tend to tell everything. Is there such thing as oversharing in therapy?
I think it depends. There could be. But also it helps you to understand a person. So there's this term we have when it comes to people, like we do what's called MSEs. It's a mental status exam. And we're looking at your affect, how you present, your behavior, your speech, your memory, your orientation, behaviors, mood. And these things are usually documented after each and every session because it helps us to keep track of how you're feeling, what you're thinking, all this stuff. I find a lot of people that I see, because it's easier for them to talk, I put under speech a lot of times that it was normal rate and tone and volume, but they were so circumstantial. That means they were like, now, I love those types of clients. First of all, the therapy session is very interesting. That hour goes by super fast.
Right.
Not just that, we have to understand as providers, our role is not to do all the talking and the work. You have to be comfortable with silence, and you have to be comfortable with being silent. And listen, and a client will tell you, and you come back with questions to gain clarity or to paraphrase and to learn how to support them. But no, for me personally, I don't think so. We want to make sure that when we're dealing with clients, some people can be so circumstantial, we got to rein them back in. Like, right. Hold on, let me redirect you because you way over here. Especially with people with diagnoses like psychosis, right? Stuff that they probably can't help. That will happen. But sometimes people just feel a sense of freedom when they're in the room and they feel comfortable and they feel safe. And then keep in mind, sometimes people have been carrying burdens for a long time. They felt unheard or misunderstood for a long time. So to get in front of an unbiased provider and feel like I can just, like I tell my women clients that I work with, lay your burdens down and have a purging session. Let's purge, baby. So we know what to do and how to move, because you can't heal from something you're not willing to face and willing to go through, not around, not avoid. But we got to deal with this thing. And that's why, like here at Pro Health Wellness Group, in our consents, we put in there therapy can be a very uncomfortable experience. And you know who's ready and who's not, because once you start touching that, either the client going to keep showing or they're going to no show. You're going to be like,
you struck a nerve.
Because healing is not comfortable. It's easier when you're dealing with things on the surface, like I'm stressed out because of work, I'm stressed out because of finances, I'm stressed out because I just separated, compared to dealing with your trauma or a bad breakup or grief, things like that.
So I'm curious, what do you do if you have a client that starts to develop inappropriate feelings for their therapist?
Ooh, baby, we call that erotic transference. If you're talking about those type of feelings.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Ooh, baby, let me tell you, because I've had a time or two. You know what's really even deeper? When the therapists start developing feelings for their clients. Because a lot of people will say, oh, no, I would never use a lie. Because I'm a human, okay? A tall, dark brown chocolate, I don't know. But that's when I got to check myself.
Right.
You know, and remember why I'm doing this. Because people say, I would never, because people come, everybody that come to therapy is not coming because they're psychotic.
Right.
Or they're dangerous. Like, let's kill that myth right now. Let's kill it.
Yes.
Right?
You hear that?
Let's kill it. Like, you can go to therapy for anything. As long as you got the money or the insurance, anything. You may be processing the loss of your dog. For real.
Seriously.
Anything, right? So, erotic transference can work both ways. A therapist can feel something for their client, but they need to go back and deal with that. Whether it's staff it, if they're intern with their supervisor, staff it with a colleague or something. But you need to be aware. Always be aware of anything. Because even counter transference or transference, a client says something crazy and make you feel some kind of way, or like you want to get upset or you feel offended, check it, because it's not about you. Now, if you can't shake that, then you need to be the professional to talk to the client and say, you know what, some things have changed in my schedule. I'm going to have to transfer you to another provider. You know, I don't want to do this, but, you know, this is what I need to do. Or I don't feel like I'm going to be the best fit for you. And I wouldn't go into why. I'm going to be honest. Why would I tell a client that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But you just have to be equipped and skilled enough to know when that happens. You know, because sometimes it does happen. And there's times that it doesn't. But I have also heard, I don't know any personally, but I've heard of therapists that have crossed the line. You're putting everything you work for on the line, because it will get back to the board. It will. And you put everything, including the business that you work for, if you're not in for yourself, at risk. It's not worth it. And then to flip that, I have worked with clients that, and I don't care if it's male or female. I used to think earlier, like, I didn't want to work with no man because of X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter. Excuse me. If a person is going to have feelings for you, they're going to have feelings for you. And a lot of times people will develop that just because you listen to them.
Right.
So
they feel heard. So they're like, oh, this person must care about me.
So I don't know how any other therapists handle it, but I'm going to tell you what I have done, because I have experienced that. I listen for keywords, and I always redirect boundaries. I set them when it first happened, and I redirect it, and then I, in setting that boundary, I also set an expectation. So there was a gentleman, he said, you know, you listen to me more than my wife, and it makes me feel so good. And I said, well, what do you mean? And, because that can mean anything.
Right.
And he goes, you know, I just find myself thinking about you. What do you mean?
Flag on the plate.
Flag on the plate. Interception. I said, what you mean? He said, no, like, I just find myself throughout the day. I say, well, keep in mind, I'm your provider. And however, I can't control how you feel. I understand what you're saying. But when we're working on therapy, let the only thing that comes to mind, the skills, the techniques, and things that we're working on to help you build your marriage.
Absolutely.
Well, he came back and he said it again. And I say, you know, unfortunately, I tried to redirect. And I don't think that this is working, because the intent is never to develop more than a provider-client relationship. I don't think that this is going to work. I think that I've taken you as far as that I can. And he said, okay, but I don't want to lose you. I understand. But I will transfer you. I will help you find another provider that's just as good. And I would just say, once you start feeling this way, then you need to do the work to find out what is causing you to feel this way.
Right.
And how to redirect that, how to work through that, because absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah. And then it doesn't have to be like that. I've had a narcissist client. Wasn't even my client. It's part of a whole nother situation. But he kept saying, I just love you. And I say, I appreciate that. However, I'm your provider. Oh, I just love you, Miss K. I'm just thinking about, I can't work with you no more. So, yeah. So there's that.
I can say I'm glad I ain't a therapist.
We are not. I can tell you what therapy is and what it is not. It is not a friendship.
Right.
It is not a personal relationship. We are not friends. We are not like family. Because people say we like family. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. I am your provider. However, I understand how someone, though, can start to believe or feel that way because you're spending a considerable amount of time of the month with me. Most people go once a week for a full hour.
Right.
And it's an intimate exchange. Think about it. You're telling me things that are going on in your life that you don't feel either comfortable or safe to tell someone else. So I get it. But what we cannot be is that. We will never be that. So that's what therapy is not. And it's sad because you have a lot of people nowadays going around, oh, I want a therapist that's married and maybe have a couple of kids. What I have going on in my life is not your business. I am taught to self-disclose only at the benefit of the client if I feel like it's going to help them. But my personal life is never a topic of discussion. Never. Now, I would think common sense is I wouldn't become a marriage family therapist and do couples if I don't know what it's like to be married. In order to help a person get to where they're going, you got to be able to understand and tell them where you've been. If I'm not married, how can I tell you about marriage?
Very true.
Not saying that my marriage was perfect or
right.
anything like that, or that person's marriage perfect, but I'm saying how can you?
That would be impossible.
Some people say they can, but to me, them textbook providers, be careful.
Very much so.
But yeah, in that sense, right? So we are to fully educate ourselves and take extra training or whatever we do to help us with that. But understand a lot of some of the best providers that I've come across have lived experience. So that's what we are. We are human beings with lived experience. We are not superheroes. We are not gods. We are not doctors. We are human beings with real feeling, real life experiences that for the most part love what we do, but we do get tired. We do. And we have to know when to say when.
Absolutely.
So we can continue to help you. An unhealed provider is a dangerous one. That's why you don't need to know about my business. You don't, if anything, I should be correcting that.
Right.
On this end, or put what I do on hold until I get myself in check. I think the best saying, and I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna go for it, is being a Walden alum. Walden. This is all before COVID. I was at a residency in Atlanta, and I never forget that it was this teacher. I can see his face, but I cannot remember his name for the life of me. But he was from Texas, and as we're being released from this cohort that we're in, I can never say the word, he says, some students said, what advice would you give us to take with us? He said, I will give you this, and excuse my language because it's colorful. This is what he said. He said, excuse my language because it's about to be colorful. He said, the worst thing you can do is to go in a room and see somebody as a therapist and take your shit in with you. And then they come in the room and they got their shit with them. And then you throw all the shit on the floor and mix it up and you give it to them and send them home. Check your shit. Check it. His exact words.
That is powerful.
And that is true.
Yes, very true.
An unhealed provider is a dangerous one. Because you talking about yourself more than the client, you enforcing your opinion on the client, your thought processes and all of this instead of being a provider. And they're taking everything that you gave them with them. And they're living with that until they see you again. You have impacted this person's life. So my concept when I got in the field, I always said as a provider that I am responsible for the hearts and the mind of the people and the lives that I touch. So I need to be careful. And I did the work before I got in this field. Doesn't make me exempt from living life. Doesn't make me exempt from going through stuff. But guess what? I know when to say when. And I have to be okay with that and teach my clients to be okay with that. That's why in therapy they tell you start planning termination from day one because anything can happen.
Ooh.
So that's what therapy is.
That is what therapy is.
And it's not.
And we will continue having more conversations like this. So y'all stay tuned. But thank you, Miss Keisha, for that breakdown of what therapy is and is not. And this is only part one, y'all. We'll be coming back.
Amen.
See you soon.
Bye.